Alright, for this video I wanted to go over Form 5695. It's the Residential Energy Tax Credit for the 2022 tax year. And more specifically, what we're going to look at here is Part 1, the Residential Clean Energy Credit. These are found in IRC Section 25 Cap D. And more precisely, the solar water heating property. So obviously, when we look at this form, it's 2 pages. There's a lot of different types of credits that you can qualify for, but we really want to just focus on this one element for this video, and I'll cover some of the other eligible credits that you can get in subsequent videos. So again, we're working for the 2022 tax year here. The credits are still in place in 2023 and going forward, but some of the amounts change, right? There's different caps and different percentages, so that's why we're just going to keep it focused on 2022 for this video. So before we go through the form in more detail, I want to cover some of the background on the credits and the forms themselves. So high level starting point here, when we think of these residential energy tax credits, there's really 2 separate buckets, right? So in Part 1, we have the clean energy credit, and that's in 25 Cap D. And then Part 2, we have the energy efficient home improvement credits, and we find those in Section 25 capital C. Now 25 capital C is interesting because that was actually supposed to expire at the end of 2021, but the Inflation Reduction Act extended those credits for 2022 and going forward basically another decade. So at least through I think 2034 we have these credits available. So when we talk about the solar water heater installation, that lives here in 25 Cap D A2. So when we think of these expenditures, the code defines these as expenditures for property that heats water for use in a dwelling, and the dwelling property has to be in the U.S., and it has to be used as a residence by the taxpayer. Now, the property also has to derive at least half of the energy used by the property has to come from the sun. And so the reason why that's really important, because a lot of these systems they'll have the solar component, but then there'll be a backup feature. So it might have a gas line backup, or it might have an electric backup. That's okay. It's just that half of the energy used by the system has to come from the sun. And so one of the ways that the Congress enforces that is this section here, right? So when we look at 25 Cap D B2, the system has to be certified, right? So the credit is only allowed if the property, the system itself, is certified by this nonprofit organization here. So the Solar Rating Certification Corp, this is a nonprofit set up in 1980. They certify these systems, and that lets you know, okay, this is going to be eligible for the credit. So not a big deal to just go to the website and verify that. You can also go to EnergyStar.gov. They have some information there too. Just make sure that before you purchase the system, it is going to qualify for the credit. Otherwise, you just can't claim the credit, right? So you lose out on a little bit of money there. Now, what about where can we install this system? So the Section 25D B2 there, improvements have to be made to a home used as your residence. So this can be either your principal home or a second home. But again, it's got to be your residence. So you can't install this in if you're a landlord, let's say, you can't install this on a home that you're renting to a tenant and claim the credit. Those are different rules. So it's got to be a home that is either your principal home or it could be a second home used as a residence. Now, the reason why this is really important, because the second home feature is not available for all credits. The qualified fuel cell installation credit, that has to be your principal home. So you can install on a second home. So that's why we want to make it very clear for this credit, you get either option. So it can be your principal residence, or it could be a second home, like a vacation home. It just has to be used as a residence by you. Now, what also qualifies as a home, that's a pretty broad definition too. It can be an actual house, it can be a houseboat, mobile home, a lot of different options. They have a nice list in the 5695 instructions, so I'd encourage you to go look at that. Now, what costs can be included when we compute this credit? So 25D E1 says that we can include expenses for labor, right, allocable to on-site prep, assembly, installation of the property itself, and it also includes, any piping or wiring to basically set up the system and connect it to the dwelling unit, so to the property. All right, so all those costs can be included. Now, what is going to be the credit amount? So the credit amounts we find in 25 Cap D G. So G has the percentage credit available for all of these installations based on year. So G3 specifically for 2022 says if we install and place a property in a service, or pay for it, get it up and running in 2022, we get a 30% credit on the cost. Now, the 30% went up from the prior year. It was 26% for 2021 and 2020. It goes back to 26% for 2023. So anything you set up in 2023, you'll get the 26%, not the 30% that we're going to look at in this video. And then in 2024, for the next 10 years or so, it's 22%. So it goes down quite significantly there. All right, so let's look at our example here, and then we'll go look at the 5695. So John, he has a home, single-family home, and he's got an 80-gallon capacity solar water heater system that he's going to install on his principal residence. The system, he looks it up before he buys it. It is certified by the SRCC, so he's good to go there. And so he gets everything done. The total cost to install the system was $5,250. And there's the breakdown. So again, all these additional costs that go along with it, that can all be included in the credit amount. So $5,250. That's the amount that he's going to claim on the 5695. So when we look at the 5695 here, again, it's a 2022 form. The qualified solar water heating property costs, enter the total there. And then on line 6B, it asks us multiply by 30%, right? Because again, that's the credit amount for 2022. If you're viewing this for 2023, you'll see a different number there. You'll see the 26%. And if it's a later year, it'll be the 22%. So the form does change year to year because of the changes in these credit amounts. Now, that's pretty much it that you have to enter for this type of credit, right? 7A and B, we can leave these blank because we're not installing qualified fuel cell property. So again, notice here how the fuel cell property, like I mentioned on the slide, they're asking, was this in connection with your main home? And that's because you can only take the credit if the fuel cell is being installed in your main home versus the credits up here. That doesn't matter. It just has to be a residence, can be main home or second home. So we take the credit amount, $1,575, that's 30%. And then line 14, a limitation based on tax liability. So this is the total taxes that John owes on his return prior to factoring in the credit. So the $3,290, if I jump up to page 2 of his 1040 here, we can see his total taxes here, right? $3,290 are the taxes that he's liable for. That's his total tax liability based on his income. And the reason why that's important, because the credit for this energy credit is non-refundable. So what that means is that the credit amount that you have, it can go up to the total taxes owed, but it can't go over it in the sense that it'll give you a refund. If your credit exceeds your tax liability, right? So let's say if the line 13 exceeded line 14, he would get a credit up to line 14, and then the excess would be rolled forward, right? So that's the line 16 amount. Notice the line 16 amount we have here is 0 because we don't have an overflow, right? We have enough taxes to be able to use the entire clean energy credit. All right, so he's getting the whole $1,575, and as it tells us here, move this up to Schedule 3, right, line 5, and so John has reported that up here. Here is Schedule 3, additional credits and payments, line 5, right? There's the residential energy credit attached 5695, and then that flows forward to page 2 of his 1040, and he gets the offset. All right, so that covers it for this video. I hope that was helpful. Obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment below. Happy to answer any I can, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video. Thank you.